Welcome to Building Harmonica Technique, a comprehensive study of harmonica technique and blues soloing concepts. My name is David Barrett, the author of the Harmonica Masterclass lesson series. Within this single video series, you will learn everything pertinent to the studying blues harmonica player. Not only will major topics be covered, but also the minute details that lead to the mastery of this instrument. Each video will cover a specific grouping of ideas. In some cases, an idea will start in one video and complete in another. The reason for this is that there are many different levels of technique, and mastery of another technique might be required to complete an idea. For the fullest understanding of all the techniques, I recommend viewing all 4 videos within the series. The topics covered in these videos are supported by Harmonica Masterclass books and CDs in the lesson series. Refer to the back of this video for details about the entire Harmonica Masterclass series. If you have any questions regarding this book or any other books within the line or the videos, look at the Harmonica Masterclass website at www.harmonicamasterclass.com or contact us by mail at P.O. Box 1723, Morgan Hill, California 95038. Okay, let's get started. How to practice. How long should you practice? Well, 1/2 hour every day is better than 1 hour every other day. Think of it as if you're going to school. You went to school for about 9 months, had 3 months off, and what did you do the next 3 months of your new school year? You spent that time relearning what you forgot over the summertime. So the idea with practicing is if you can practice every day, whether it's a 1/2 hour every day, or longer if you can, obviously. If you have a 1/2 hour every day or longer, what happens is you're always moving forward. You never actually have to go back the next time you practice, review what you did, and then move on. So the idea is that it's just a continual learning process, as opposed to taking some of your time later and making up for the time that you forgot some techniques. Another thing is you need to have sit-down study time. Study a new technique. Then from that technique, place your new technique in a lick, basically in something that can be used in some type of musical context. Then use your new lick and technique with the CD. Basically make it yours. One thing I'm going to stress very often in this video series is specifically when you learn something, if you don't apply it, if you don't get it into some type of context, you're never going to use it again. So make sure that every new technique or new lick that you work with, you're applying it to something that you can use later. Now also, part of your study time is to study an artist at or just above your ability level. Follow these steps. Listen and understand why the lick was cool to you. So you might actually listen to about maybe the whole solo section. There was one lick that really stood out as something that was really nice. So take that one lick, now learn it by breaking up the pieces of the lick. So instead of taking the line that might be 2 measures, try to find the natural breaks in the phrasing so you can work on that little piece. Once you have that little piece, you move it to the next piece, and then join those pieces together. So basically those pieces are going to help you get the entire whole of the lick. And also find out what chord it was on. If it was a nice 4-chord lick, you have to know that that's what it is, so that when you play along with your CD jam track, you know exactly where that's supposed to lie. Also, learn what came before it and what came after it. If this was a high-end lick, so many times I find myself on the high end playing this nice lick that I might have heard sometime from another artist and thought it was nice, and I learned it, and I forgot how to get out of it. And sometimes you can play a fast lick and there's just no way getting out without remembering somehow how that person got out of it. There's a good chance that you're going to be able to work something out, but the idea is if you like the lick, that probably means it was set up well and it was also followed out well. Also, now this is the important part, use the new lick in your material. Jam with the CD, make it yours. So say if this new 4-chord lick that you learned, you want to go ahead and put this into context. So put on your Blues Harmonica Jam Track CD and listen to the first 4 measures, wait for that 4-chord to happen. And right when that 4-chord happens, boom, put your new lick into it, then stop after that lick is over. Then go ahead and introduce a lick with some type of pickup or whatever that artist originally used. And the idea is that as we learn licks, we're taking those licks and putting them into specific places. And our mind remembers those licks in those places. So that when you're jamming, and all of a sudden you do this little turn, it reminds you of that 4-chord lick, and you're on the 4-chord lick. That's kind of how soloing works. Now later we're going to go ahead and look at a chart that talks about how phrasing works with those specific licks and how they are combined with the other licks you've learned. Holding the harmonica. The number 1 rule is don't cover your playing surface. Now remember when we did the tilted embouchure, our lips were quite high on the harmonica because we tilted it about 45 degrees. We brought it into our mouth. So what that means is our lip is very, very high, almost very much up to the crest, and the bottom lip actually doesn't go too far down. But the important part is if our hands are sandwiched on the harmonica, this is kind of the natural feel that most players want to use in the very beginning, is it covers our playing surface. What does that force us to do? Well, guess what happens? If I'm that way, it forces me to pucker out to actually be able to play the hole on the harmonica. We don't want to do that. We want to tilt it about 45 degrees. Now the only way to do that is if we actually take our finger off, slide it, and put it on the upper crest. Now, right now, you don't necessarily have to have the right placement of your right hand, but the harmonica, if you hold it right, probably should fall out. You don't hold the harmonica with one hand, you hold it with two. Always keep two hands on the wheel. So the idea is I'm going to go ahead and kick the butt out on the left-hand side a bit so that this pudge area right here actually doesn't cover up my first and second hole. I'm going to put my finger on the crest. What that means for my bottom thumb is I actually put it right there on the crest as well. So if you think two crests, you're okay. Tilt it. Now, again, if you're holding it right, it should fall out. The right hand itself, for right now, does one job. And that one job is actually to hold the harmonica against the side. These hands are actually free to do whatever they want to do, of which we're going to do some different effects such as the wah-wah with that. So go ahead and put it back on the crest, get it comfortable. I usually use this part of the finger right here. And that actually helps our placement for some other type of holding that we're going to do in a couple minutes. So that's the way to hold the harmonica, and the way to test it is actually to put your lips on and see if you can see if your finger's actually in the way. And if it is, you need to reposition it. Everything is very comfortable. Now, that's the holding of the harmonica. Let's also talk about a special effect that you can do with that. Well, the secondary effect of holding the harmonica is actually to get different tone qualities. If we were to close this cup, we're going to get soft, very warm, and actually not very loud. When we open it, now it's going to open up to the inherent brassy qualities of the instrument, and it's going to be louder and it's going to be much brassier. So we can actually use that for both volume effects and also wah-wah effects. And the idea of a wah-wah is you can actually make your harmonica speak. Now for this one, we want to go ahead and put our finger there. Then on these fingers here, you want to go ahead and close them so that there's no air leakage. The idea is when you do this cup, you somewhat want to be like you're holding water. If water can actually get through your hands, so can air. So let's pick the heart back up. Finger there. We're going to close the fingers. And then also make sure your fingers are closed here. Then bring in the cup. Now the idea of the cup is that these portions of your hand are going to lock tight into the bottom right there. And again, remember, don't cover your playing surface. See, the bottom is open and the top is open. Okay, now for the wah-wah itself, what we're trying to do is we're closing off the airstream that's going to you, the listener, and what happens is we have a very warm, rich, quiet sound. Then when we open up our hands, we actually have the brassy qualities of this natural instrument going to you, and also there's no restriction in the sense of how much volume is going to go to you. And on the wah-wah, it's important that you actually speak your note first, then open it up so that we can hear the differences between the draw and the draw closed and the draw open. Here's what it sounds like. Two draw. Now, there's no articulation in my throat. Everything you're hearing is specifically made by the hands. Now, with a wah-wah, you see how I'm opening up from my wrist here? My elbow is in, and I'm using my wrist to open up this cup. This is very comfortable and will probably be very common when you start using a bullet microphone or other microphones down the road. So the wah-wah can be created here, or what about from the side? Now if you do it from the side, you see how my elbow is in? If I do it this way, I'm really pulling these muscles here, and it's difficult to open up comfortably. So what you have to do is move a little bit more like a prayer. Move this way so that your muscles and your wrist can move a little more freely. So this can be used both as effect or actually as a vibrato itself. Let's try it with an effect. So that'd be the wah-wah played in context. You can also use the wah-wah more rhythmically and actually create a vibrato. Let me play a line that uses no wah-wah. Now, here's with the hand vibrato. I was actually using a throat vibrato there, so let me do that one more time without the throat vibrato. Now with the hand. And for that type of rhythmic wah-wah, it's much better to go ahead and use the hand as opposed to the wrist. Now, let's talk about the bullet microphone. Since a lot of us will be playing amplified, we need to talk a little bit about how to hold that. So for the amplified playing, there's quite a few things that go into play. Let's start with the left hand. On a bullet microphone, because the diameter of the face is very large, we want to only have about 2 fingers here. We don't necessarily have to hold the whole mic because our harmonica has to be held in there somewhere. So use about 1.5 fingers, probably about 2 fingers will be comfortable at first. Now what we want to do is as we put the harmonica in, we want to have a tone chamber. Do you see that space between the harmonica and the microphone? So that's the left hand. Now put the harmonica there. Remember, we're going to hold the harmonica with this finger on the crest. There's our thumb. That's going to remain the same. Again, you can see this tone chamber. Tone chamber isn't hugely important, but you do get a little bit more bass response, and from that bass response you get the more muddy tone that you're looking for. Now the right hand, I'm going to go up a little bit here. The finger goes on just like we did for our acoustic playing. Close the fingers here and then bring it down. This goes down here and this locks tight here. Now, this embouchure that we're working with so far, it's closed from the back, it's closed from the bottom. Now, there's one thing that happens that we need to kind of look at. On the right hand, if your finger's there, our goal when playing amplified is that we want to take all the sound from the harmonica and anything from the outside into this microphone. So for that reason, we want to go ahead and put the finger there, close it off. Now this thumb right here is actually going to go over those top holes. And the blocking of those holes basically will stop the air from going in or any sound escaping out. So what happens is the microphone itself really responds to close speaking into it, and what's going to happen is we're going to close our hand, and it's going to make a big difference in how it really affects the signal going to the amplifier. So talking, nothing really, a little bit, and it's not anything until I'm actually touching my lips to this microphone. Now, this microphone in general really doesn't do a very good job until we use our hands. And you can see right away it's very, you can't hear anything that I'm saying because it's really what we're doing is we're distorting this cartridge and we're sending a very strong line level to the amplifier. That's what's giving us part of our natural distortion when we play amplified. And if I was to play acoustically before I even put the hand on the microphone, add the other hand. It's a little smoother, a little bit warmer, and that's what our goal is pretty much for that. So the thumb goes here. Now there's also a hole here and a hole here. Your bottom lip will go there, and your upper lip will go here. Then from the side we got our thumb, and what we're going to want to do is tilt our face towards the thumb. And that's what's going to make this airtight, locked embouchure and handhold all together for the microphone. Now, the thumb, it's something that players don't think much about, or there's not really any material talking about the thumb out there. But watch what happens when I get rid of my thumb. There's a huge difference in tone just from the thumb. So make sure that thumb's over, really covering that. Now, this is, we're going to talk a little bit more as we go on in the Building a Harmonica Technique video series of how to really work your embouchure, because how the heck am I going to move around on the instrument if my face is stuck on the harmonica? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is the way that I play. I know a lot of other players play this way as well, but it's definitely not the only way. Here's another one that's somewhat common, and this is the two thumbs up approach. And what happens is the actual jaw, or the jaw goes into this space right here, and that covers that hole. This is a very, actually even more bass response comes from this type of embouchure. Here's my way. Two thumbs up. See, it's a little more bass response. So if you have an amplifier or microphone that doesn't give you as much bass response as you would like, maybe this would be a good way to hold it. What I find difficult about this is I am really stuck in there, and I can't really move my jaw very well. And we're going to use our jaw later on to help us move around the harmonica faster. So I prefer this type of hold. And remember, number one rule about holding the harmonica, do not cover your playing surface. So you see, even though I've got this massive grip on this big heavy microphone, the entire front cover, or the top cover of the harmonica, is available for me to play on. Here are the notes on the harmonica naturally available to it without any techniques such as bending. Here's the blow side. We have 1 through 10. Now the blow side has a repeated pattern. C, E, G, then at 4 blow, C, E, G, then at 7 blow, C, E, G, C. So we have a repeated note pattern. Let's say it together. C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C. Pretty easy to remember. That's the blow side. Now the draw side is D, G. Think dog. That's the easy way to remember it. D, G, and then we have a repeated note pattern between the 3rd hole and the 7th hole. B, D, F, A. And then the 7th hole we have now B, D, F, A. So 3 through 6 and then 7 through 10. Say it together. D, G, dog. B, D, F, A, B, D, F, A. Now the important part of actually knowing your harmonica is that when taking something from a section, or you can take something from a section in the middle range, which is most common to harmonica players and also the most comfortable for harmonica players to use, we can take this and actually move licks from this pattern, because we know what the notes are, up to the high end. And the idea of the high end is it's a little more difficult for us to understand because the bend structure is different, and also the harmonica does kind of this backflip. If you notice here, we got the blow is lower than the draw. So we got blow up to the draw, blow up to the draw, and that's the same way all the way up to the 6. Then on the 7th hole through the 10th hole, what we have is a flip. Now the blow is higher than the draw. Because of that, it actually changes bends and changes the pattern. It seems like a fairly small change, but it's something that is a little bit difficult to work with as a harmonica player. Now, if you don't spend time on the high end, if you've been playing a harmonica for quite a long time, here's an easy way to bridge that gap. If I was to play a lick here, what notes are those? G, B, D, E, G. We got 2 draw, 3 draw, 4 draw, 5 blow, 6 blow. Now, if you know these notes, you can also see that that pattern also lives on the high end. G, B, D, E, G. This is one of the easiest, most powerful tools to actually get used to the entire harmonica, not just being stuck on the first 6 holes. If you can understand that these notes are here, if you have a repeated pattern, C, E, G, and you have a repeated pattern up here as well, C, E, G, moving is just simply understanding what notes you played and where to move it on the high end. That's octave substitution. If you were just to pucker up on the harmonica, there's a couple things that go into the embouchure. What happens with the purse is if you purse out kind of like a straw, what happens is these muscles are tight. And the hard part about the embouchure being tight like that is, let's kind of look at the embouchure using our hands. We have our teeth, we have the roof of our mouth, this is our hard palate, and then we have our soft palate going down to our throat. The hand is the tongue, here's ta, ta, ta. If you purse out, what happens is this embouchure, or the airstream where the air comes in through the harmonica, is very tight and very closed. Well, the hard part about that is when you're playing the harmonica, if you go with the constricted air passage, it'll actually relax those reeds and make them go a little bit slower. And what happens because of that is the pitch goes down. Let me give you an example of that. See, it's a little airy, doesn't have as much power through the note. What we always want to be in is what's called the zero position. Here again, ta, ta, ta. Here's this pursed out, What we want to do is, really open up that embouchure. See what happened to the airstream? Now I'm going to drop the tongue back just a little bit. Look what has now happened. I have this very large, warm, relaxed airstream. We're going to want to use a tilted embouchure. And number one, open up and relax your mouth. So what this is going to do, open up, tilt the harp, bringing the harp in. So bring the harmonica to your mouth, not the lips to the harmonica. Nice and strong because the air passage is not constricted. Now, the hard thing to think about is how can I actually get one hole blocked off if my mouth is that large? What happens is there's this natural curl in your lip. And this natural curl in the lip actually will block off. I don't know if you can see the harmonica on this, but the holes are right here. And here's the first hole, second hole, and third hole. Well, if you have a curl in your bottom lip, what happens is the first hole and the third hole are blocked by this natural curl. And we're accentuating that curl by tilting it into the bottom lip. So what happens is this second hole is actually available. So let me do it actually straight, and then from the straight I'm going to tilt it. You see how the two draw actually gets focused? I'll do that one more time. To first get used to this tilted embouchure, again, make sure that your embouchure is very warm, open, relaxed, tongue is dropped down, your jaws drop down. We want to make this air passage very, very, very large so that we're more breathing through the harmonica instead of trying to constrict at the lips. So, the tilted embouchure. Now, to first get used to this embouchure, go ahead and slide across the notes. And again, when you're moving from the first hole to the 10th hole, you want to go ahead and slide instead of trying to pick the notes. Because once you already have your embouchure, the idea is if you slide, the notes will be chosen for you. Do all the draws all the way up the harmonica. Do the same thing for the blow. And that's a tilted embouchure. Articulation. Number one, you want to leave your nose closed for now. We're going to use the nose for helping equalize how we use our breath, but right now keep it closed. Now, the first type of articulation we're going to use is ha. I'm going to play a line. It's 2 draw, 2 draw, 3 draw, 3 draw, 4 draw, 4 draw, 5 blow, 5 blow, with no articulation, and that's really ha. Ha is just the diaphragm kind of pushing up and accentuating that note. That's ha. So ha is pretty much considered no type of articulation. But sometimes we actually want a note to stand out a little bit stronger. Let's try ga. Now ga is exactly where I'm saying it. Ga. Ga, 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 ga. Now on the ga, you want to be very careful that you actually don't stay in that ga spot too long. Let me show you an example of the mouth. Here's the teeth, hard palate, soft palate, here's our tongue, ta, ta, ta. If you're going to ga, now a bend is created from a constricted air passage. If your ga actually stays up there too long, goes up ga, ga, it's actually going to bend the note. You hear that little bit of a dip? That's 3 draw. So if you use ga, kind of like a gya instead of a ga, 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 you want to come in, articulate, and get out as fast as you can so that you don't constrict that air passage. Here is gya, kind of a lazy ga. Doesn't sound very good, does it? Our idea is just to stop the air very short period of time. And what happens is the air comes behind it, stops, and when we let it go, boom, it shoots forward, and it gives us a little bit of a stronger attack on the note. So here's that passage using ga correctly. Now on the blow, ga doesn't sound very good. For some reason, articulations in the blow tend to sound fairly small, and you actually hear the articulation more on the blows. For the blows, we're going to go ahead and use the ha's for all those. Now, here's ta. One recommendation before we move on to the ta's, probably ga is going to be a little bit more difficult to start with. I think we're going to go ahead and start more with ta, but keep in mind that the ga is also a possibility to use. Now, the ta itself is a lot closer to the harmonica, so it's actually a faster articulation. What we have is ha starts here, ha, the breath comes out. Ga is right here. It's a lot closer to the face of the harmonica, so it's going to be a much stronger articulation than the ha. Ga. Now ta, ta. It's right there on the harmonica. So actually it's a very fast articulation. It's one we use quite a bit. So here's that same passage using ta. Now we want to use the same principle on ta. We don't want to actually go up and ta, ta. You don't want to use that matchbook effect. You want to make sure that you go up and go ta. Kind of talk like an Englishman. Ta, ta, ta. Ta, 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 ta. Don't let the tip of your tongue hang out too long. Same passage. Ha for the exhale. Now, just as another example, I'm going to show you all three different types of articulations in a lick. Here's ha. Not very articulate. I'm going to use ga now. A little better. Now I'm going to use ta. Much stronger. That would be my choice for that lick. The glissando is specifically just moving up the harmonica. Whether it's a draw pattern or a blow pattern, it is moving on single notes. Now you can use the glissando to connect two licks. Say if I play something on the low end, then something on the high end. Now instead of actually separating those and not putting anything in the middle, we can do a glissando. I'm going to blow up to the sixth blow. Here it is. Now in that example, the glissando actually worked fairly well because it was trying to put those two licks together and take up that space that would normally be just dead space. Now you can also use the glissando to help find where you're at on the harmonica. Jumping up on a 7 draw for a lick or an 8 draw or something like that, it can be a little bit difficult because this is a range of the harmonica we actually don't use very often. So there's the 7. Well, that was a pretty good chance that I hit the 7 right on. Say if you're not too comfortable with that, well, what about the 3 draw? 7 draws B, 3 draws B. If we start on 3 draw, and I sure know where 3 draw is, so I can hit it most of the time, pretty consistent. And if I hit the 3, then I can slide to the 7, and I'll hear that octave. I'm going to go a little high. You'll see how it goes right off. You'll know right away if you're not on the right note. So the example, here's a lick. Start with 3 and glissando up. That works pretty well. Now the glissando can also be used as a lick in itself. Let me give you an idea. If I start on 2 draw, 6 blow, 9 blow, and connect it with the glissando. Now where do you switch over? I went 2 draw, 3 draw, 4 draw, 5 draw. Then I plan to breathe, boom, on the 6th blow. Now the 6th blow, then to the 6th draw, 7 draw, 8 draw, 9 draw, 9 blow. The key to doing something like this is the timing, that you actually time your breath. You're not necessarily going note, 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 blow. You're going note, blow. You're going to time that blow to happen. Pretty nice for just a simple sliding on the harmonica. Another way you can use it as well is actually just as a pickup. So if I also play 4 blow, what if I just start with my mouth open a little bit and swoop? So I actually got maybe the 1, 2, 3 hole, and I swoop over to the 4. That works out pretty well. Now, the shake. When performing the shake, always start with the bottom note. And what the shake is we're actually playing the draw or the blow, and we're going to introduce the note above it. So if I play the 3 draw, I'm going to shake evenly between the 3 and the 4. If I go to the 4 draw, I'm going to shake evenly to the 5. Now, always shake your head, don't shake your hands. The idea is if you're playing, using your head, then you got to stop to shake your hands or to do something like this on the side. Then you go back in. It's a pause that you don't want to have in your playing. So the idea is when you do a shake, always use your head. Now the other thing too is your lips themselves have their own sense of elasticity. So what happens is just the lips themselves, you can actually anchor on there to help you, because sometimes at first you'll go a little bit too far, maybe up to 3 notes, even though we only want to do 2. So anchor that top lip on the harmonica and just shake, because remember, our embouchure really happens on our bottom lip. Now it's also important that the bottom note is always the first note to start. Let me give you an example. I'm going to play a line, and I'm going to play the same line with the addition of the shake. The bottom note is still the note, or the line of the bottom notes, is still the line that the listener is going to hear. Notice how you heard the same thing, but the shake really opened it up and added something extra to it. When you start a shake, I'd also recommend using the dip bend. And the idea of the dip bend is toi or ya. You want to start the note a little bit flat and go up to the natural note. Now, combinations as well. You can use the 3 draw in combination with the 4 draw, just a little bit of 4 draw to add thickness. So really what happens is you're playing the 3 draw and you got a little bit of the 4 draw and you shift over to the 4. Because your embouchure is big, you're actually adding a little bit of that left hole to the right hole as well. And this is what you get. And it muddies it up a little bit. That works really well if you're looking for something very thick and very intense. Let me play a couple examples of just the shake. Kind of nice, wasn't it? Now I'm going to use the shake with a little bit of the extra note. Not bad for shakes. Now, I'm also going to talk about another technique that's more on the embouchure or articulation idea, but it's more of a special effect because it's used in certain situations that aren't as normal as some of the other articulations we use so far. That would be double and triple tonguing. Now, the double tonguing is ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka. The idea is when your tongue travels, if you go to the front, say this is your upper teeth here, ta, 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 and what's happening is if we were to, let's see, there's your teeth right there, and there's your tongue coming in. So ta, 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 ta. Well, there's a traveling of your tongue, isn't there? There's a ta, and it goes back, ta, goes back, ta. What if we were able to make use of the back movement as well? It'd be ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka. And that's what double tonguing is. It basically makes use of that double travel of the tongue. So here's ta, and you can't go too fast just going ta, 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 ta. Now taka, 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 taka. And you can go pretty fast using the taka. An example where taka might work fairly well is when you're doing chords. And a chord would be like the 1 draw, 2 draw, 3 draw. Now that's just ta. If I go taka, 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 you can actually hear the articulation difference between the ta and the ka. It actually makes for some very good train patterns. Here's an example of a train pattern using taka. tas really come in handy for passages like that. Now, triple tonguing would be T-T key, T-T key, T-T key, T-T key, or ta-ta-ka, 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 ta-ta-ka. Now, this depends on what hold you're on the harmonica, and if you have a passage where you really want to hit a note very, very fast, repetitively, these triple tonguings can work very well. Tongue blocking is just another way to play a single hole. When we puckered, we used our bottom lip to help us focus around the hole. Well, tongue blocking, we're going to use our tongue to help with that. If we look at the first, second, and third hole, we've got C, E, G. Place your lips over those 3 holes, and then take your tongue and place it in the first 2 holes, leaving G left over. Now, the tongue itself has this natural split in the center. And what we want to do is kind of put the left lobe there and the right lobe there, and that's going to block those holes. Now, after you first get used to a tongue block, what you're going to want to do is not use the tip, but actually use a little bit of the tip top. If you go to the tip and you push it straight out, it tends to be very darted. What we want to do is use a little bit of the tip top, and the tip top would be about right here, almost like we're kind of flipping the harp up if we were going to flip it out. Because remember, here's the harmonica. It comes in at a 45-degree angle, so we're going to use a little bit of the tip top. We don't want to use the very, very tip. This has to do with also being very relaxed when you're playing your tongue-blocked embouchure. Now for the tongue slap, okay, go ahead and get your C harp ready. The first, second, and third hole you want to blow. Again. That's the tongue block. Now, if you find that the hole's a little bit pinched, it either could be that your right lip is too close, and if in that case, smile to the right. Or your tongue might be blocking it. So make your tongue a little more dart-like instead of pudgy. The idea is you don't want to push the tongue into the harmonica. The idea, just like the tilted embouchure we talked about, we want to bring the harmonica to the tongue. So here's the 3 blow again. Now, just like we did on the single hole embouchure, the tilted, you want to slide up and slide down both in the blow and the draw to get used to it. Now, let's use an exercise to get used to the tongue block. This is 6 blow, 5 draw, 5 blow, 4 draw, 4 blow, and then backwards, back up to the 6. I'm first going to play it with the tilted embouchure. Now, tongue blocked. No difference, is there? In general, tone-wise, there really isn't much difference between the pucker and the tongue block. The tongue block, your mouth is a little bit larger, so the tone is a little bit warmer. But without adding any techniques, the tongue block by itself doesn't have any type of texture that we're really looking for by itself without any other added techniques. Now, make sure you slide your tongue. Don't replace your tongue for every hole that you play. Now, the biggest advantage in tongue blocking for the blues harmonica player is the tongue slap. What the slap does is we're actually going to breathe first, then put our tongue on. And the effect that we're going to get is we're going to get all the air vibrating through 3 holes. So we get all these reeds vibrating. We get this chord, and the chord happens to be the lower notes. Then you add your tongue to the 2 lower notes, and now what happens is the air that it took to vibrate 3 holes is now pushed over to the hole left over on the right. And we're also getting this effect of chord note, And it's a very strong attack, and it works very well to give you the tone that you're looking for on the harmonica. Here's the 5 blow. Open, tongue in. Now start the air, bring your tongue on. So really what we're doing is we're playing a chord before we play the note. So I'm going to play that same exercise now. Play tongue blocked again, get used to it. Now tongue slap it. I want you to telegraph it. Really hum, 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 hum. Then after you get used to it, you can slap it a little bit faster. me give you an example of pucker, then tongue block. Now, tongue slapped. Much smoother, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to talk about now the fake tongue block. Before we actually go into slaps, or we already did slaps, before we go into pulls, I want to show you what you can do with the bottom lip to somewhat create the same type of a sound as the tongue slap. On the third, second, and hold, because your tongue would be on the bottom two notes, it's difficult to play that second and first hole. And I also feel a lot more comfortable bending when I'm actually using the pucker embouchure. So for right now, you might feel more comfortable using the first, second, and third hole, single hole, actually with just that one bottom lip pucker. Then the fourth hole and above, go ahead and use your tongue blocks or your tongue slaps. For me, that ends up being the best example, just because, again, the bending is a little bit stronger to me, and also I can bend and move a lot faster in a pucker if I'm on that lower range. In the Building Harmonica Technique video set, we're going to talk about how that's used and how our jaw also goes into that and gives us more reasons of why I'm going to use pucker and tongue block as both embouchures for my performing. Now, there's one way, before I go into the fake tongue block, let's look at a fake tongue slap. And what happens on the fake tongue slap is, the idea is that your tongue is coming on the two holes, so hum, and the leftover effect is the hole that's on the right of it. Here's a four blow. Now I can create that same effect by swooping. So if you're using a passage where you're only using a couple puckered, then you go into a tongue block. So that is, we're doing everything pucker, then we want the sound of one tongue block and then back to the pucker. You might not want to switch your embouchures just for one. So you can actually use this fake slap to give you the same type of effect without actually having to switch over embouchures. Now, another way to get effect is if you use the bottom lip. Now what's going to happen is, I'm going to play the two draw and I'm going to relax my bottom lip. Well, what happens when I relax my bottom lip? Well, if this is my bottom lip and this is the hole that it's centered on, as soon as I relax it, it's now opening up all three holes. And this is going to give us somewhat of the same effect that a tongue slap would give us, the chord before the note. So if I was actually to use the lower lip to open, this is what it sounds like. And what we're going to do is we're going to go. In this case, we're using it as a pull. Really what I'm doing is I'm just doing a chord on the and. And again, I'm only moving my bottom lip. Now the fake tongue slap part on the two draw is just when you start with the chord and then come into the note. Let me show you what that sounds like amplified. See how nice that sounds on the two draw? Now I can put a combination of a pull and then the slap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull first, second, and third hole and then bring in that chord to the two. And let me give you an example of just puckered, and then with this new technique with the pucker, we've got the pull and the fake tongue slap on the two. Now let's add the pulls. Notice how we're able to get a very thick sound. And when I went da, 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 I played three draw with a little bit of four draw to add thickness. Went to four blow, and three draw with a little bit of four draw again. And then vibrato. So we're actually able to create a very, very thick sound without even using our tongue. Very thick. Articulation used when tongue blocking. Ha is pretty much the articulation that's used because the idea that your tongue is actually on the instrument. So to say ga or ta is fairly difficult. Ga can be used because the tip can be used for ta and the back can be used for ga. But the idea on the tongue block, if you're here and the tongue's up here, it leaves less embouchure room basically for that airstream to go through. So if we think about it, here's our front of our teeth, our hard palate, soft palate, or the back of the throat. Here's our tongue, ta, ta, ta. If our mouth is, or this tongue is actually stuck on the harmonica, to do ga, look what happens to our air passage. It's very much cut off. So ga you can use, but you have to be very, very careful that you go in and pop right back out. And that's the idea of the ga. Now the ta, same thing, we can't say ta because our tongue is actually on the instrument, and ta is used with the tip. But something that is used is called the side pull. And what a side pull is, if you're over 3 holes, and you're blocking the first and second hole, and you've got this third hole left over, say this is my tongue, the natural curve of my tongue. So if this tongue right here is coming in on the first and second hole, and when I tongue block, I tend to lean a little bit to that left side. All I have to do is kind of squeeze a little bit more tongue into that. So I've got if we're going to use if we use the 5 draw as an example, it'll be 3 draw, 4 draw, 5 draw. Here's a 3 draw and the 4 draw, and I'm going to pull my tongue over to the 5, and I'm going to pull just the side out so that those first 2 holes are still covered. This is what it sounds like. The first part of the pull is actually just covering all those holes. And then pulling it off. Let's look at this camera and see if we can see the tongue pulling off. I'm going to put my tongue on the upper lip so you can see more. Completely covered first, and then pulling off. And that's what's called the side pull, and that's how you articulate. Now, you can also use a cough when accentuating a blow, because when doing a blow, the side pull doesn't work as well. You can hear the mouth noises a little bit more, so it's definitely not the choice of articulation that you want to use. So you have to either use ha, which is not too articulate. You can hear it kind of start the note, then get louder. Well, what I want to go ahead and do for this one is cough. Now, you can hear my throat, so it's not an articulation that you're going to want to use all the time, but it's definitely something you can use to really accentuate a passage that you might use on the harmonica. Now, you can also use it as you slap. Now, remember, you can hear the cough noise, so you definitely want to reserve it for the times that you can go ahead and do that. And also in performance, sometimes these guttural noises from your body actually help. So sometimes I actually can go into the performance of it. I'm going to talk about the pull. And what the pull does is, the pull itself is you're actually taking your tongue and covering all the holes. So if I was to play the 2 through 4, the pull would start by actually having the tongue on there so that no notes would actually vibrate. So nothing. Then release your tongue, pa. And remember, ta was right here, very close to the harmonica, right behind your teeth, ta, 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 ta. Well, that was about this far away from the harmonica. Now, the ta of the tongue is right there, ta, ta. It's the fastest attack you can do on the harmonica. So cover all the holes, all 3. Here's 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And what we can do is we can actually substitute the and notes with this pull. Let me give you an example. I'm going to do a 3 tongue slap. Then 4. Here's the lick. All tongue slaps. Pretty thick sounding, isn't it? That's 3, 4, 4, 4, 4. Then 4, 5 blow, 4. 5, 5, 5, blow, 4 draw. Now, on the ands, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pull. So here's what without the pull. Now with a pull on the and, or the upbeat. Again. lot more smoother, isn't it? It carries that real swing feel much stronger. Let me give you another example. Let me play it one more time for you. Without the pull on the ands. Not very fluid, is it? Now, there's another technique called the pull slap. This is actually more of an advanced technique, but I'd really like to give you an idea of how you can put the pull and the slap together. What happens is, if you want to really attack a slap stronger, you start with your tongue on the harmonica, you pull it off, so you're covering all the holes. You pull it off, and you slap it right back on the bottom two notes. And what you get is this. Does. So you're pulling all the notes, coming back on the bottom two. And the idea is we really want to pop those notes into vibration. So that's called the pull slap. I'm going to leave it at that just because we're going to need to know some other techniques before we can really take full advantage of it. But it really is an interesting way to attack on the tongue block. 4-hole octaves. The octave is used to send a broader presentation of one note. If we look at the harmonica, if we put our embouchure over 4 holes and we block the 2 holes in the center, you see we can get C and C. Then we slide our tongue over, we can get E and E, G and G, C and C, E and E, G and G, and C and C. For the entire blow side, we have octaves available to us. On the draw side, we've got the 2nd hole and 3rd hole we block. We have the 1 draw, 4 draw. We got the Ds. And slide it over. You notice something happens there? We got the G and the F. That's not an octave anymore. It's actually a minor 7th. Slide it over B and A, slide it over D and B, and so on. What happens is we actually lose the octaves once we get past this 2nd or 5th hole. Let's actually try the octaves. Put your mouth over the 1st through 4th hole. Make sure you hear 1 blow and 4 blow. Now, take your tongue, put your tongue on the 2nd and 3rd hole. Again, we don't want to use the tip, we want to use the tip top. Almost like if we were to lick it, it would flip out. Now, if you hear any chord type quality to it, that means you're actually not on the pure octave. You might have a little bit of 5. If you have a little bit of 5, probably unsmile. Because the idea, if we look at the right, you can smile to the right and it opens up your lips. If you smile to the left, you can open your lips that way. So we can open our embouchure by using these muscles here. So if it's a little bit too wide, D smile. Now it might sound mean and nasty, but we don't want that. We actually want to block off any possible holes because the idea is the octave sends a presentation of 1 strong note. So 1 blow, 4 blow. Then slide it. What you want to do is you want to slide from the 2 all the way up. Now, instead of picking the holes, and you don't want to take your tongue off and pick those holes, you actually want to slide across it. Now, on the draw side, now there's the 2-5. Now the 2-5 is used as an example. If you were to have a lick where the 5 draw would sound pretty nice, you can actually add the 2-5 octave, and it helps build that tension and release. Instead of. But in general, the idea is to send this very strong presentation of some notes. Let me give you an example. Remember, our goal is always to take this little tinny instrument and make it sound big, fat, and basically just larger than what the harmonic was originally meant to be. And with this amplifier and the microphone and octaves and these big techniques, we can really make this little tinny instrument sing. Okay, now let's take that same exercise that we used before on tongue slapping and use it now on the octaves. Let's go ahead and play tongue slap so we can review it. 6 blow, 5 draw, 5 blow, that one. Now keep in mind the 2-5 octave is going to be a little distorted. You want to key into what that sound is. Again, don't pick up your tongue each time. Let your tongue just slide, because once you have the first hole, it's very easy to move around. It's just like playing a single hole tongue block. Now, there's another technique that can be used. This is called the flutter tongue. We're going to use the same idea of the octave embouchure, but it's actually more common on just a standard tongue slap. What will happen is we're going to take our tongue, and the tongue is going to come in and block the 2 holes to the left. Now, something I haven't talked about before is the 4 holes on the harmonica. Before we had played a 4-hole, we'd have to play the 2 and 3 with our tongue, and the 4th hole would sound, and our lips are on the right-hand side. Well, after you get used to tongue blocking, what's going to happen is your embouchure is probably going to grow to about a 4-hole embouchure. Instead of actually blocking 3 holes with your mouth and 2 with your tongue, you're going to go over 4 holes and block 3 with your tongue. This is a comfort thing. This isn't something necessarily that you actually have to do right away. Your natural evolution as a harmonica player is going to move you that way. So blocking that, think of this 4-hole embouchure, and what we're going to do is put your tongue on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, and darting, and this is going to create this type of Leslie organ rotating sound. So let me give you an example of this. Here is the 1, 2, 3, 4. The tongue is blocking 1, 2, and 3. Or if you feel more comfortable, do the 2, 3, and 4. Now, let your tongue go a little faster. It's not going to be very rhythmic at first, but working with it, you'll definitely get it. And again, you can use that anywhere on the harmonica where you have those holes on the left to make that available. So you could really do a flutter tongue from the 3rd hole all the way up. As far as you want to go. Think of this as an accent. This isn't something you're necessarily going to run up the harmonica and run back with. Use it for small spaces. Let me give you an example. That same 2-5 octave that we ended with on this lick, we use an octave. Why not use a flutter? See, that little bit of flutter really made a nice difference. Now, something we need to talk about in the octaves is we talked about articulation within the tongue slaps, or just within the tongue block. We need to think of the same thing. Remember the pull, the side pull, where we actually pulled off the right-hand side? Well, this one we're actually going to pull off both sides. So that's what's called the side pull, but now it's going to be on both sides. Try it on the 1 draw, 4 draw. So remember, cover all 4 holes with the tongue and then pop them in. Now again, with this one, we're actually not going to use this on the blow because the texture quality of actually articulating these side pulls on the blow doesn't work as well. See, it just doesn't work as well. And also, when your tongue is on the harmonica, a lot of saliva tends to get into the instrument. And because of that, it tends to muddle the reeds. So for the blows, you're probably better off using the same cough we used before. So you can see the combination of those work fairly well. Another technique is side switching. Side switching can be used to help with octave jumps. So you actually might use 1 draw, 4 draw. Now, if you were to change or switch the idea of the tongue block, you can now actually play on both sides. Let's use our chart. And if I'm tongue blocking the first, second hole, that leaves the third hole to vibrate. Or if we're using more of a 4-hole type embouchure, I'll block the 3 holes. It leaves the D on the top. Now let's go back to the, let's use the 4-hole example. Say if it's the 5 chord coming up and you block the first and second and third hole, that leaves the 4 draw. What if you just slide your tongue over? Now I have the 1 draw D. Slide it over, 4 draw D. Ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, bop. Let's try that. So, cover the first, second, and third hole with your tongue. Leave the 4th hole open to vibrate. Now, because we're actually blocking 3 holes, we actually want to have more of our tongue on there. And the idea of more of the tongue is, if you're blocking 3 holes, you can use kind of the tip top. But what happens when you now need to block 3? Well, you can't just mash your tongue into the instrument. What you want to do is use more of the tongue. So we're actually using more of the body of the tongue. So when you do a 1, 2, 3 tongue block, just go ahead and use more of the body, which means also put a little more of the instrument in your mouth. So if we use an example, here is maybe the normal tongue block, and here is 3 holes. So stick your tongue out, use more of the body of the tongue. So let's go ahead and try that. 1 through 4, blocking the 1, 2, and 3. Then, from your tongue, switch it over to the right side. That's the idea of the side switching. 5-hole octaves. Looking at the chart, what happened on the 4-hole octave is when we played 1 draw, 4 draw, we got D and D, and we slid over, we got 2, 5, G and F. Well, that was no longer an octave. We move up to 3, 6, that's B and A, and something happens here. I can use more of my tongue and do what's called a 5-hole embouchure, where I block the 3 holes in the middle, and now I'm playing 3 draw B and 7 draw B. Slide it over, 4 draw D, 8 draw D, slide it over, 5 draw F, 9 draw F, slide it over, 6 draw A, 10 draw A. The only octave we do not have available on the harmonica is this G here. See, there's no G on the right-hand side, but guess what? You see the 2 draw G and 3 blow G are the same Gs. You can go ahead and switch over to the G for the 3 blow, 6 blow octave. So what happens really is we have octaves available. If we're thinking of the upper note as the note heard in the octave, and it is, when you do a passage, you always think if you're going to add octaves that the note has to be the 4th hole or above. Because if you play a 1 blow, 4 blow octave, you're hearing that pitch more predominantly on the high end. So really, if we get rid of the first 3 holes, we have octaves all the way up available in our harmonica. And it really gives us a lot of range available. Let's try that 5-hole octave. Now, on the 5-hole octave, it's exactly like the idea of the tongue switching, where we did side by side. We need to block 3 holes. So because of that, you really want to put a lot of the harmonica in your mouth. And what's happening now is you're blocking 3 holes. You got a 4th hole here, but now we have this 5th hole on the left-hand side. So it's a very, very large embouchure. Smile, ah, drop the jaw, and again, use more tongue. Let's look at this here. Ah. So again, not just here, here, ah. So what's going to happen is you're going to take the harmonica, you're going to tilt it more, put more of the instrument in your mouth, and ah, drop your tongue. I'm going to do a 3 blow, 6 blow octave, then I'm going to go to a 3 draw, 7 draw octave. That's the 5-hole octave on the draw side. Watch as I move on this. Probably get rid of the mic so you can see this a little bit easier. Now, you see how my lip really protrudes fairly far over. Go ahead and do that at first. Over time, you're going to be able to move into that 5-hole octave with less movement. But for right now, go ahead and just make a large movement to really open up that hole on the left and the right. Again. Now, on the 5-hole octaves, what this does is it really opens up now the entire range on the high end of the harmonica. Let's use octave substitution and look at the chart, and let's try actually doing octaves on our octave substitution. And remember, the idea of octave substitution is taking a note pattern from one range of our harmonica and moving it to another range of the harmonica. So if we play this lick, 2 draw, 3 draw, 4 draw, 5 blow, 6 blow. Let me go ahead and play that for you. I can also play that on the high end. That would be G, B, D, E, G. Let me play that for you. Now, we can go ahead and switch over to octaves when? As soon as we get to the 4th hole. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 2 draw, 3 draw, 4 draw. See, we got the 1 draw D and the 4 draw D. 2 blow, 5 blow, 5 blow being the upper note, and 3 blow, 6 blow, G on the upper note. So you get da, 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 da. Let's listen to that. Now, since we have octaves all the way up our harmonica past that point, we can go ahead and do that. Let's now do G, G, B, here's our 5-hole octave, D, 5-hole octave draw, E back to 4-hole octave, and then G staying on the 4-hole octave. Let's see what that sounds like. So here's our simple lick that we started with. Let's now do it in octaves. Pretty big. And also when moving up on your high range, one thing that we find is the single holes themselves sound pretty small. What if we use tongue slaps? Much stronger. And what if we use octaves? Even much bigger. Again, what's our goal in life as blues harmonica players? To make this tinny instrument sound big, fat, and mean. And using these octaves is a really great way to do that. Now, I want to go ahead and use an example. Same example we did on the 6. Remember this one? And we did it in the octaves. Now we want to do the same thing starting on 9 blow, 1 octave higher. Now what you have to get used to is this inchworm effect. What happens, actually let's look at our hands here. What happens with this is we're on 6 blow, 9 blow, this is a 4-hole octave. Then what we do is we're going to now move to a 5-hole octave, right? We want F, the 9 draw is F, so we need to move over our left to get that F on the bottom. Then we're going to go to E, we need to chop off that note on the top, but the left side of our embouchures are ready to go. Then we go to the draw D, we need to move over the left side of our embouchure for the 4 draw D. So here's what we get. We get blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw. So this combination, it's kind of this inchworm effect, and what happens is you're going to be kind of moving this harmonica in and out to get that same effect. Let's take a look at it. 4, 5, 4, 5, 4. And backwards. Now I'd recommend using that until you get used to using the 5-hole octaves in context. This is really a great exercise to get used to it. Do you see how there's no combinations of any other notes? It's going to take a while to be able to create that, but remember, octaves. The main goal for octave is a bigger or larger presentation of one note. Okay, let me play you an example. Congratulations on finishing video 1 of Building Harmonica Technique. I'll see you in video 2, where we'll cover draw bending, blow bending, overbends, vibrato, and music theory. Let me say goodbye by playing the video out with one of the tracks in your Blues Harmonica Jam Tracks and Soloing Concept CDs. Listen carefully, for I'll use tongue blocking techniques quite a bit.